So today I thought I'd take a quick video of how to trim nails, because it's something that I normally end up doing for quite a few people at every show, and a lot of people want to know how. So our model here today is Moggle, who's my 4-and-a-bit-month-old black Dumbo that's come all the way from Lovecraft Rats, which isn't really that very far. She's actually one of my few rats that actually has nails. A lot of mine either trim their own, so they'll chew them down to a nice kind of gentle point, or I think actually climbing up all the branches that I have in my cage helps as well. So you can see Mog is by no means a rat that stays still easily, though now of course she's doing it, but she's quite a lively little girl, so I wanted to pick somebody as well that would show you what a real rat's like when you're nail trimming. So I'll see whether you can get a bit of a kind of close-up of what her nails are like. So it doesn't really focus very well. Sorry, Mog. And Mog doesn't really do still. She's quite sweet though. No, that's the camera. Yeah, this probably isn't going to work particularly well, but you can just about see in silhouette against me there that her nails hook over. And one of the key things with nails, in fact I'll see, this is a good idea, if I can draw it on the board. So a rat's nail is like this kind of shape, and then this bit sits on the finger. One of the key things to remember when you're talking about rat nails is there is a vein that goes through the middle of them. That is called the quick. You cut the quick and the rat will bleed, and the nail will bleed, and the more you cut the quick, the longer it takes for it to kind of clot up, so it's a bit of a pain. So one of the key things you need to do when you're cutting a nail is make sure you avoid the quick, and it's handy. Rats have transparent nails, so by having the transparency there, you can just about see there's a kind of chunk of the rat's nail, which is around about here, that's quite opaque. You can't really see through it, it's kind of pale white, but you can't see nearly as well through it. And then there's this bit here is quite transparent, and it's also a lot thinner. So when you're cutting a rat's nail, what you want to aim for is try and trim just that tip off. You don't want it so short that they basically can't do anything anymore. Pretty sure Mog's just run away now, so I have to find her in a minute. But yes, you just want to cut that off. So the idea is they've still got plenty of nail to function with, because you want them to be able to climb, you want them to be able to hold on to you, and you want to be well away from this quick, which actually in reality does come down a fair bit further, to be honest. That's probably more realistic. You want to stay well clear of that and literally just trim that tip. Now if we just try and work out where the hell Mog wandered off to. The downside of this taking place in their free range room is that Mog knows full well where she can go and explore and be naughty with. So, two main tools that you can use for trimming nails. You've got your good old kind of normal scissors, nail scissors that you would use for everybody. And then you've got nail clippers. I mean, these are particularly nice because they've got I Love Rats, which apparently looks back to front on this. But I do quite like these because they're quite good control. These are great if you want to see what you're doing. The downside is this end's pointy. Rats move, and you need to be very, very aware if you use scissors where you point them at. I do sometimes use scissors. I always keep the point pointing into me, but I wouldn't advise it for somebody that wasn't confident. What I tend to use mostly is these things because they're pretty sharp. As long as you're careful and make sure the rat's still before you cut, you're going to be probably okay, but you do have to be very careful that the rat doesn't push its finger in more, because these could do serious damage, much like anything, to be honest. Right, so Mog's nice and lively. How do I hold them? I'm just going to put something paler on my knee so that you can see Mog being black. She blends into my trousers a little bit. Give it a sec. Perfect, you should be able to see her against this. You don't really need a cloth or anything, I'm just doing this so you can see how I'm holding the rat. So, there's obviously various different feet on the rat. The back feet generally are longer and they're also kind of thicker. These are actually slightly easier to get, but you do have to hold the rat fairly still. One thing about this I would say is don't get stressed. The rat's going to move around, the rat's going to cause a bit of problems, probably not enjoy the experience. As long as you stay calm, do one at a time, and don't get stressed, it's not that bad. Obviously Mog's getting more and more excited, so this is going to be more and more interesting. So I'm going to try and do a back claw first. So what you want to do is try and wedge the rat. I use my arm because this works quite well, and then I'll hold the foot in my other hand, and then I just clip. Now Mog's squiggle a little bit, so I just let her move a little bit and then just reposition her. Again, wedging her with my kind of wrist just against there, and letting her try and tunnel into my arm, so that gives me a bit of kind of a hold without squishing her. And I've done 2 nails there, so that was fairly straightforward. You've got 4 proper ones on the back feet. There is a 5th, but it's pretty small and rarely needs to be done. If I see that she's going to move, I just let her and then reposition her. You find some rats will get a little bit squeaky and upset at this. Some rats don't. Mog isn't particularly upset, she just doesn't particularly like being confined. You're a busy girl, aren't you, miss? Which is fine. Right, so I've done 4 of the claws on her feet now. That's pretty good going. Do her other back feet, so again turn around, and again I'm using my wrist to squish her and using my hand to hold her foot steady. And I'm just clipping that little tip off that you saw on the notice board behind me. Right, and that one's just getting in the wrong position. There, so all the back feet are now done. I find the back feet slightly easier because they're bigger, they're easier to see. The paw itself is less delicate and you can actually get a better hold on them. The front feet, everything's a little bit more delicate, you don't want to squash anything, so you're a little bit more paranoid. So, front feet, when I'm holding them, again I'm squashing them against me using my wrist, trying to support the paw in this hand, and then just clipping. Mog's now settling down a bit, she's kind of understanding that this is happening. Some rats do, some rats don't. She still doesn't want me to clip that really little one, which to be fair, I don't really need to clip, there's not much on it. I don't want my rats to have no nails, I want them to have a little bit because there's so much climbing in the cage. Without it, they're going to fall off the branches. Right, so we're on to her last paw. There's only 4 claws that you can clip on the front paws. They're pretty straightforward. The little one right at the end doesn't always need doing. So that's it. That's how stressful it is. I don't know if you can see. We'll see if Mog will demonstrate without wiggling too much. Go on, Trouble. Yes, yes, I love you too. So, yeah, she's not really showing it very well. To be fair, she's been very good. Confining for that long is a bit boring for such a little active rat. Show off to the camera. You want to climb on the camera, don't you, miss? You're a good girl. Right, let's try back foot. We might be able to get a view of that. Now that's a tail tipping it up. Well, hopefully you saw a little bit. The tips are cut off, then they're reasonably short, and she's a lot less scratchy, which is pleasant for me and pleasant for any judges that she happens to be under. So that's nail clipping. It's not that bad. If your rat's just getting used to it, you can give them plenty of treats between it. Mine, you can see Mog is not entirely fussed or that upset with me having done it. You miss. Some things to talk about is what happens when stuff goes wrong, because even like the most experienced clipper will occasionally overclip. It's one of those things you just have to kind of be prepared for. So you've got a few options. You've got something most people have in the house, which is corn flour. What you do, if you overclipped it and you see the rat bleeding, particularly if it's just the nail, I mean if it's part of the toe you might have to think a bit more seriously about going to the vets. But if it's just the tip, you can dunk it in a bit of corn flour. That will normally help clot it. I'll be honest, quite a lot of rats then lick the paw, lick the corn flour off and it continues bleeding. They are a bit of a pain like that. You can also use flour at a pinch, it's not quite as good, or stipatic powder, which is much more effective because that causes the vein to kind of shrink a bit on it too. What also works sometimes if you're struggling to get a rat to stay still is you can use like a show tank or a carrier, and you can put a bit of the flour or the corn flour in the bottom of that, or a really absorbent substrate, so something like Bedmax, Mega Spread, OBOS. It's quite helpful in many situations. However, if something like serious happens, maybe they lose a toe or you've got a rat with a clotting problem and it's bleeding everywhere and it's in a right state, If the rat starts going a bit kind of weak, lethargic, you can tell the blood loss has become serious. And I've got to say, I've never had that from a cut nail, but I've seen rats get in quite a bad way from a torn nail where they caught it on something and yanked it out. If that happens, then you can either go to the vet and they can cauterise it, or you can look at cauterising it yourself at home. I would say don't do that unless you're bloody experienced though, because it's taking something like, what the vet uses is essentially a soldering iron. They heat up the tip, just touch it on the tip of the nail, and that's it, it's sealed. Obviously you need to hold the rat very, very well should you do it yourself. I don't know that I'd recommend it for everybody. I have done it once and I've had the vet do it once for a rabbit, which was far more messy. Rats are simple compared to rabbits. But yes, that's like an emergency measure. I wouldn't really recommend it because you could end up burning the rat or yourself, to be honest. Mostly though, I think in the 30-ish years I've been owning rats, I've been trimming nails for about 20 of those, and I've overcut 2 rat nails, and they weren't that serious. They closed up with a bit of corn flour, no problem. Torn nails I find much more hard to deal with, so that's probably the main things on cutting nails. Give it a go. Doesn't matter if you just do 1 nail at a time and then let the rat play and maybe come back to it another day if it's really, really stressful for you. But yes. What are you up to? Nope, that's not yours. No, she knows where she shouldn't be going now. That's rats for you. But yes, I definitely recommend everybody giving it a go, because as much as it's stressful, not only is it beneficial from you in terms of not being scratched and useful if you show, it's also useful because it gets the rat used to having like limbs handled and held and being put in awkward positions, which is really useful should the vet ever need to do anything with them. And it's also quite useful because I found 2 long nails catching things more often and they're more likely to be pulled out, and a pulled nail is much sorer, well, more sore, sorry, not really sure which of those are the right word. She's back. Yeah, a pulled nail is much more serious and it's going to hurt them more and it's going to bleed more. So if you can keep them at a reasonable length, it's handy. A lot of other people recommend things like a brick under the water bottle, some of the kind of ledges that you can get that are kind of pumice stone, that kind of thing. I'll be honest, I've never found them work particularly well. Mostly they just end up being peed on. The rats quite enjoy peeing on them. It stinks. I find it much, much more effective to trim the nails, and would recommend that one really for anybody. I think that's probably everything I think of on nail trimming. Welcome any questions you might have. Just let me know in response to this video and I'll try and answer them. I just also try playing around with different positions. You've seen what worked for me. Some people prefer having two people with one person holding the rat. I find because my hand's on the rat I can tell how it's going to move a lot more, so I prefer that, but other people don't. Oh no, no. That's somebody's kitten pack that Mog's trying to steal from. She knows there's treats in there and she's clearly starving, aren't you, miss? I will give her a treat after this because she's been very good and very patient with me. Right, I'm off now before Mog robs the entire pack. See ya.